has decided to, and I think because of some of the reasons that Commissioner Ravel was talking about, decided to weaponize dark money, that this is an advantage that one side has and is going to keep and take advantage of and do everything they can to make it a better weapon and to not enforce the laws that are in place that should be regulating it. But once you get outside of D.C. and you go back to the states, I think there's a lot of hope, and that's why you see bipartisan legislation being passed in Montana. That's why you see more than 500 cities passing their own statutes, resolutions saying we want to overturn Citizens United, we want to repeal this is a really bad idea, you guys. And it's why I always encourage people not to lose hope, again, that if we're only looking at solutions getting changed by, convincing Mitch McConnell to change his mind on things, that's maybe not the most effective way to do things. But we're seeing this prairie fire getting spread across the states that looks like it really has a lot of power to move from the bottom up. So if you think that maybe Montana is small and there's only 1 million people there and it doesn't apply to the rest, it's like we all have that group of 1 million people around us where we can really affect political change. And it might be in the school board, it might be, in your city council. And if you think that's small potatoes, you shouldn't, because there is a lot of dark money that's playing in those elections, so that's where you need to fight it. So start small.
I think just to add to that, there's been a lot of polling about, mostly national polling, but polling relating to people's views not only about money in politics, but dark money and the campaign finance system. And overwhelmingly, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, it's about 85% across the country that believe that this is a problem that needs to be rectified.
Yeah, and that's remarkably consistent every year since Citizens United passed in 2010.
Why doesn't anything happen?
The question is, why doesn't anything happen?
Yeah, in other words,
I think that things are happening on the city level, on the state level. We're seeing legislation like this passed again and again. And that's what is, I think, going to speak to the federal level. Just once we need a, momentum.
Can you speak to the federal level when you've got to go get the Supreme Court ruling?
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do despite Citizens United, and one of them, most importantly, and Senator Tester spoke about it, is disclosure and transparency. And there can be disclosure of dark money. There can be regulations that will deal with some of the communications on the internet that are dark money. So there are things that can be done for sure. And I think it's true that once there's more of the either constitutional amendments or statutory changes in states and in local governments, it's going to be a way to convince Congress, hopefully, to be optimistic that they need to pass these kinds of rules too.
H.R. 1, the For the People Act that was mentioned, the first piece of major legislation in the new Congress, is comprehensive, and there's a wide range of solutions for campaign finance reform. So, if starting at the state and local level is what, reinforces what's happening at the federal level, there's a lot of hope for what that has to bring. It's going to take a while to pass at the federal level, but the enforcement is at state and local level.
We'll take the next question right here, and then we'll swing over here after that.
Hi, I was just wondering, I noticed a lot in the last election, a lot of the mailings I got and a lot of the commercials here in California and Los Angeles said paid for by the actual candidate. I don't know if it actually was. Probably you could speak, Commissioner, about California since you live here, what the rules are here, if they're different, if we have better rules than in other states, because I noticed in the movie it talked that we didn't have any rules on the books when you were making the movie about campaign finance. And so, but I really noticed that because these mailings are so evasive. But I would really check these out and see who is paying for these.
Right. California is at the forefront, although there's some other states that are pretty good too, and has pretty extensive disclosure requirements for not just the kind of dark money groups that are talked about in this film, like the 501c4 groups, but others as well, limited liability corporations and others who are contributing to campaigns and have to disclose who the top donors are. And California passed a version of the Disclose Act already a couple of years ago. I believe that it was initially on the ballot. So there's much better disclosure here. There's still some issues, but much better than the federal level.
And if you're still curious, or from a different state, you can always go to two websites that are really helpful. They can show you who's contributing money to the candidates you're curious about. One is opensecrets.org. The other is followthemoney.org.
Great. I think we have a question right here.
Disclosure is probably the only game we have really right now, and it's great if we have an informed and concerned electorate, which, other than folks like us in this room, I'm not sure about across the country. What is is there any hope for public funding for elections, and has there been any research to your knowledge about how the legality of that would look?
The public funding has been upheld for the most part throughout the country. The only case, it's a U.S. Supreme Court case that arose out of Arizona that struck down a particular public funding program was one in Arizona. And that one, this is in my view, one of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever, or worse even maybe than Citizens United. The way that it operated was for the public-funded person, if the opponent was either self-funded or had money from independent expenditures or very wealthy donors, and it went beyond the amount of money that was part of what was given to the publicly funded person, Arizona would then augment the money to that publicly funded person to be able to have a fair playing field. And the U.S. Supreme Court struck that down, essentially saying that the free speech rights of the wealthy individual were more important than equality of speaking with the publicly funded donor or candidate. And so that's the one caveat, but otherwise public funding is permissible. And of course we have a public funding presidential fund as well, but no one uses it.
And that's another component of the For the People Act is public funding pools with 6-to-1 matching. So somebody gives you $100, this public funding matches at 6-to-1, and all of a sudden candidates are incentivized to talk to real people instead of just super wealthy folks.
Great. In the interest of getting everyone home soon, I think there's someone in the back with their hand up real high. We'll take your question.
Are you pointing to me?
Actually, I'll point to you and then the man behind you after that.
Can you hear me?
Sir. Wait, is there someone down here as well? Sir, go ahead.
Hello, thanks very much for a wonderful film. It's quite impressive. You're mentioning that there are many issues that the population, left and right, agree on, but can't make headway in Congress. This has been known for quite a while. It's been a big point about Ralph Nader that he's been making. And why doesn't it succeed? I think your movie shows very well how sophisticated and far-flung these campaigns are to interfere with public desires in the electoral process. I had a sense of this, that a lot of money has gone in, but it seems to be spelled out in such detail there what the ramifications of these organizations are, the amount of funding required to keep them going, and the loyalty required by those who coordinate their campaigns with them. It's very impressive. So I think that'll help in this regard. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it just really goes to show that a little bit of secret money equals the impact that a bunch of other money-spending campaigns can have. If you're targeted about it, if you push the right buttons and you work secretly, it has an enormous impact, which is part of the reason why you can't just measure how much dark money there is versus money that you know about, because first of all, you don't even know all the stuff you're not seeing, but secondly, this dark money has so much greater impact. And yeah, that's